Everybody, and welcome back to another video. A lot has changed in Vellum since I first did my tutorial a while ago, so we're going to do another one, and we're also going to go over some of the new things. But if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Joe. I am an author of dark romance, as well as the owner and founder of Romantica Designs and Dark Ink Publication, which is a publishing company where I help to publish not only my own books, but other indie authors' books to help them get started. And so today we're going to talk about Vellum. I do formatting for myself and other authors, as well as cover design. So we're going to take a look here at this today. And again, I have done an older video, but it has been a while, and Vellum tends to come up with updates a couple of times a year. Their newest ones being pretty neat, including text messages and things like that. So let's go ahead and start. On here, the left here, I like to call this my tab section. This is going to have all of your chapters. It's going to contain your title pages, images, anything like that. That's all going to be right here. This middle section is what I like to call the action section. And this action section means this is where you're going to input information, whether it's going to be chapters, it's going to be these chapter headers and things like that. And then this side on the right is going to be your preview section. And we're going to start here on the right real quick. As you can see, this is displaying a tablet, which is pretty cool. And that's because it's displaying an Android tablet. It's kind of showing you what it would look like on the tablet. And if you come right up here to this this bar, this what I like to call the action bar, you're going to come over here, and there are varying different ways that you can see everything for the book. For example, I can also go to print to see how it would look in print as well. Now, this isn't actually my print book. I actually create a separate vellum for my print. And what I do is I get everything ready for the ebook. And then I come up here and I press duplicate. And then I make a separate print. However, I did upload, but I completely forgot that I wanted to put in my own my own headers for this, and therefore, if I did that, as you can probably see, like right here, you can see the word Ava when I actually have it up here. So just know that that is something, but you can see it, so you can preview everything as well. And in the print also, it's going to tell you what size book it is right here as well. And you can simply scroll on. Now, just so you know, no matter how cool your computer is, some of the time, especially if you have a bigger book, or especially with the print, it's going to take a while sometimes for these chapters headers to load. So if it keeps just kind of being whitened out, just give it some time. It will catch up. All right. So back here on the tab section, we're going to start actually up here. And right now we're on this little 3 like dot bullet points, but we're going to go over here to this like double looking infinity type symbol. And this is where you're going to find all of your styles. These styles are different ways that your books can look, including how headers will look, breaks, things like that, just kind of how the book is overall laid out as well. As you can see, I am in trace right now, but there are several different types that you can do. I'm going to click on this little multi-dial device here, and that's going to take me into the styles settings where I can make them my own. So the first one here is heading, and this is just different ways that the heading can look. And obviously, like for me, the warning is the first chapter. Um, in So this preview is kind of inaccurate. I don't really care about what the warning says. I care about here where this is changing, right? So right now it's a number 2, but then I go back, and it's going to go right back to what I originally had it, and then it looks just different here. But it's going to show whatever your chapter is, and I'll show you that in a little reason why in my ebooks I make my warning the first chapter. All right, so that's the heading. This is going to be your heading background. This is where you're going to be putting these beautiful images. So as you can see, I actually have 3 images here. This is fairly easy to do. You're going to select what kind of image you want. Because my book is really big, I opted only to do single chapter images. And so this is what it looks like. And it's going to tell you, like, based off of this, what the size is going to be. So this satisfies, but if I were to click the double, it's going to tell me it's too small. And this is the pixel size that is recommended that I have. So it's going to tell you. You can also change the image presence. So if you don't want it to be as present, I'll click over here to Ava. You can actually change that. It might take a little while. As you can see, it'll change the image presence. I obviously wanted it 100%. I like that. And then what you would do is you would come down here and you'd apply it to individual elements and then name it. Or you can do it to all parts, and that's going to change it to all parts that you do, or all chapters. And then again, if you have a dark background like I do, make sure you're using white text. Now, something that is really cool, if you have a chapter header, which I'm going to show you in a second, if you put in an actual header right here and not one that, like, see, this here is actually, I built this. This is attached to the page. If you have an actual header right there, it will actually turn that white as well, which is pretty neat. And all you have to do is you'll come in and you'll just select plus background. So I'm actually going to rename this Ava. Rename this Bias. There we go. The next is your first paragraph. The first paragraph is deciding what you want your first paragraph to look like down here. And as you can see, it's taking a while to load. It's not as fast as my other ones because this is a really big book. This is like 600 pages. So this is going to decide what that chapter heading looks like. I am not super particular, honestly, but if you have a lot of shorter lines, like first chapters, I'm trying to think of one here. Let's see if I can find one. I think I don't always write first line. Anyways, if you have like really like first like short ones where it's going to hang over, I would suggest maybe doing just like these basic ones. I personally like the basic ones. I'm not really all in. And so that's just my personal preference, though. Everybody is different. Now, the paragraph after break, this is going to show you what your paragraph after a break looks like, which means if you double plus it, there are different ways. It's not going to show it. I don't have any of those in this book, or I do have anything. Actually, I do. So, oh, it's frozen, isn't it? Oh, I know. Hold on, there we go. It's gonna make it a little easier. I know I have some in here. There we go. There it is. And so it's going to be right here. This is just taking so long to load. Like I said, this is a pretty big book. So it's right here. This is what it says. I'm going to change that back to what it normally is. But this should technically be appearing. I'm not sure why it's on this. This is the end of a chapter. But this is my ornamental break. So it's going to what you want it after an ornamental break. Let me tell you something. If you double enter, in this, it will make it'll think of it as a break, and then it will apply this here, like whatever paragraph after break. Just know that. So if you like to double enter, just know that that's what's going to happen. If you wonder why in the middle of a chapter you have drop caps appearing. Ornamental break, you can choose them or you can customize one like I have here. It'll say custom image, and you'll just upload your own image. I make my images in Canva, and I use an Instagram post is what I use. I use an Instagram post size, and then you can adjust the size. That is something new. You didn't used to be able to do that. Block quotations. You can choose how you want quotes if you're having one that has like quotes in it or something like that in your books, like at the beginning of your chapters. Verses. I do have verses in mine. This is kind of how I chose mine. And then text conversations. This is actually the one thing I do not have in my book. I don't have text conversations, but I'm going to show you anyways how to do it. I'm just going to make a fake one while I'm in here, but you can do text conversations, and now you can choose how you want it. Some people will still put like the name of the other person, like it'll say me above it, and stuff like that. So there are different ways. Like this here is actually, they say text, but this is really more what they aimed at for like social media. So you can have different ways. I like the good old fashioned, usually this way or like this one, but that's completely up to you. Written notes, you can now choose written notes, which is pretty cool. So I have journal entries in mine. So they have different ones that you can do, which is pretty neat. So I like chose this first one because I like the way that it looks like handwriting. It's somebody's journal. Photographs. This is like for the, like my photograph is technically my image headers because that's what I put in. So I can change that. Portraits, if you have portraits. I don't. Captions, if you do captions. Header and footer. This is also something new. Before there were only basic headers and footers. You can actually now decide how you want them. You can make an ornament to put in there, which is kind of cool. You can decide what you want for the header content. You can hide it on the first page of a chapter. That's pretty neat. But yeah, that's super exciting because that was not there before. So you can play around with that. And then of course, body. And this is going to change, like determine spacing and indentation. So a lot of people, they'll do spaces like this. I personally am not a huge fan. I personally like indentation with bigger books. I don't like heavy spacing. You can justify the text, allow hyphenation, and then you can decide what different like fonts that you want. These are the ones that are available. And then this is something new, clarifying breaks at the bottom of the page. And this was happening a lot, even if somebody didn't have like an actual break in the page and it was going on, or maybe there was a break coming. So at the top of the next page. So I actually decided to get rid of these, and that's something you couldn't do before either. So just know that that's all possible. This is inside. This all looks the same. It's just going to be dependent on the style that you choose. Again, saving the style. If you want to save it this exact way, I can reset it to default. And then you can look all styles. You can look at accessible. They have ones for dyslexia and legible. So that's all there as well. All right, so continuing on with this action section here, or this tab section, is the title page. The title page is the first page that everybody sees when they open your book. Supposedly, that is not the way it always works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of the time, most places will actually open your book to the first chapter, which is why I told you with my warning, I make it my first chapter. So this is the title page. And now here in the action section, you can see that it's got everything laid out for you. So here on this little gear, that's going to be your setting. That is on every single portion of your tab and chapters and everything. This one includes ebook and print only. Like, what do I want to include this title page in? Now, as I mentioned before, or at least I think I did, and I don't do paperbacks and ebooks on the same vellum because I tend to work around systems and stuff like that, and so. I always go to file and duplicate and create a separate one for my paperback. So we're going to click on edit title info. This is where you're going to put all of your title info. You can put the ebook ISBN. You can add contributors. You have your ebook cover. You can do accessibility descriptions if you want to, but it's not necessary. So that's all your title info. I usually only include these in ebooks because in the paperback, I actually make my own title page to match the book cover. Contents. These are all contents. So this is my parts. I have parts in this book, so it's telling me to list my chapters within parts, and you can list subheads within chapters. But I'm just doing my parts and then listing the chapters within those parts. That's just your contents. You can choose again up here to include it in all of your editions or just one or the other. All right, everything from this page downward is things that you create. So in this tab section, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. We're going to see a plus sign and another gear sign. This plus sign, if you click it, is automatically going to add a chapter to the bottom of your page. So working with this blank chapter, saying I was writing something out, blah, 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 blah. All right, you can determine, you go up to this gear and you can determine if you want to add a chapter author, add a heading image, hide a heading, apply a heading background if you wanted to. You can convert this to maybe like about the author. And it's going to add like Facebook links and Twitters and Instagrams. You can add more icons here. And that's what it's going to do for you, which is pretty neat. So the skies are the limits. I suggest playing around with those. You can also decide where it begins on, whether or not you want it on the right side or whether you just don't care what side it ends up on. So play around with that. If you're adding a heading image, for heading images, I again will make an Instagram post size heading image because you can't adjust the size of heading images. And that can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. Because sometimes if you don't make it big enough, you have to just create big, which is a lot of the time why I don't create heading images. I just tend to put in these images instead. All right, so that just adds a chapter, but if you wanted to add anything else, down here on that gear, you're going to find adding a chapter, adding an individual element, such as a full page element, adding multiple elements if you wanted to add multiple elements like praise for Joe McCall, or half title. If you wanted to add a copyright, you can do that. They will actually make a copyright for you, or an epigraph, or a foreword, or an introduction. So any of those are absolutely positive. You can make a couple at a time. You can also reuse elements, which is pretty neat. That's another thing you really couldn't do, is you can reuse elements from other books. I'm not going to press it because then I'm going to get almost. So just know that you can reuse those elements. I haven't really tried it out yet, to be honest. But when I do, I'll make a video on that. You can create a part. So like this, I created this part for all of these chapters up to 40, because these are actually how I decided to put all 4 of my books in one. I create a part. This is technically to 40 is Shattered Pieces. The original book in part 2 is Shattered Remnants, which was the second book, and now it's in 2 books because a lot more people are reading duets than they are series. You could create a volume from a selection. You can do numbering, how you decide to number them. You can do terminology as well. I don't. So that is all there, and everything that you can play around with. So we're going to get out of the tab section over here, and we're going to come to this action section. There are a lot of things that you can do in this action section. So let's start, for example, right here on this asterisk. In this asterisk, you can do a lot of things. You can do make a subhead, and a subhead is something like, I actually don't think I have one in here. So let's say here I wanted to create a subhead. I'm going to highlight it. I don't know why I'm having words. I'm having problem with words today. I'm going to make a subhead. This is great for something like if you're doing 3 years later or something like that. This can be seen actually in Declan, I believe. Let me double check here. Oh, don't do this to me. Why are you so slow? So like this right here is a subhead. So instead of putting it up here, like adding a subtitle for like 1 year ago, where it's going to be under here, because sometimes people put their name under here, but you can do it under there. I put it there instead. And that's what a subhead is going to look like. And if you want to get rid of that subhead, it's going to show you the gear and you're going to clear the formatting for it. And that is a subhead. The ornamental break, this is how you do ornamental breaks. Here is the thing, a big secret. It's not a secret. In your manuscript, when you are making ornamental breaks or you're making scene breaks, if you do 2 asterisks and a space or 3 asterisks and a space, it will automatically place those ornamental breaks for you. If you do anything but that 2 or 3 asterisks, it will not, and you will be hunting down all of your ornamental breaks. I have a client who is absolutely amazing, but when I first started doing their books, they would put tiny little dashes like this at the beginning or at the end of every chapter, and then for each of their ornamental breaks. Having to go through and search for those dashes was absolutely excruciating. I actually now make it mandatory for all of my clients to change their ornamental breaks to 2 asterisks or 3 asterisks. And again, if you do those 2 or 3 asterisks, make sure you're putting 2 asterisks in a space and then enter. Because if you do it, especially the 3 asterisk, it'll create, if you don't press space before you enter, it'll create a long dashed line across, and that's not fun to get rid of. And then you can place an image. So these right here are actually images that I placed. So what you would do is you would place an image. You just go to, I want to do that. You just go to image, and then you find the image that you want and you place it in here. This is a image. This is a name image that I create. It is a 4 by 1 inch box that I create in Canva that I put the name in, and I kind of just with each different text that I script that I use, I kind of adjust it until it looks like I want. So it'll come in, and actually, funnily enough, it comes in looking like this. But then if you go here and you click these 3 little dots, you adjust it. And so I adjust it to this biggest one here, and it moves it all the way over for me. And then here, this is where you can add a caption or replace the image. Or decide which ones you want to include it in. Again, this is still something that is new because that was not there. I want to test that out now. So I'm going to take a look at that. Woo, that's so cool. So this is nice. So if you don't want to, now you don't actually have to include, you don't have to do a separate thing for it because, whoo, baby. This is pretty good because I always have to create 2 because of this. So that's actually something new that I didn't have before. So that's kind of cool because now I can, now I don't have to keep creating 2 because I always lose them. So that's pretty darn neat. I like that. That I don't have to do that anymore. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna still put it for ebook only though. Let's go back to the, okay. So this says image is too small for selected size. Don't worry about that. It's also gonna ask you to add a description for accessibility. That's completely up to you. I do not personally do that. All right. So the next thing down is alignment block. Alignment block is exactly as you see it. You're going to highlight a section and do it like this, and you can decide where you want to align it. Funnily enough, before they have text, this is how I used to do it. So that's going to decide if you want something that you want to be in the middle, or you want to be aligned differently. You can make lists, bullet points. You can do block quotations, verses, and then text conversations. So if we did text conversations, I'm actually going to show you how to do this. Let's go to Declan. Because I know there's always text messages. Okay, here we go. So I'm actually going to change these. Okay, so these are how we were doing the text messages, and then I learned a different way to do them. So you're going to select what you want as your text, and then you're going to hit text message. Okay, so if I actually cleared this, All right, I'm going to select what I want as a text message, and then I'm going to go text conversation. Now, remember, when you read a text, everybody else is on the left and you are on the right. So you can keep it this way, and that's totally fine. But another way I learned to do it, thank you to Lyra Parrish, is by pressing enter. And then this one right here, I'm going to put in the middle, and it's going to create the name above the text bubble. And go here because this middle one is more like social media than it is for anything else. And so that is pretty darn cool in my opinion. And so that's how I do my text messages. Now on off count too, because we always know that the person on the right is you, you can actually also just leave that out. All right. So written notes, that's the same thing. You select what you want and you make a written note. Web links, store links, external links, we're going to get into that. Endnotes and footnotes are just as they appear if you're putting endnotes and footnotes in your book. I've only seen maybe one author do this. I'm not a huge fan of it, especially if you're reading from a phone. All right, so this is, you can bold, italicize, or underline. You can make it small caps, so it's gonna go like this. The boy was begging again. You can make it all small caps, sans serif, monospace, subscript, which is kind of cool, subscript again, which is kind of cool, and strike through. So if you're doing something that involves any of those things, then you can do that. And then search, you can search for anything inside of your manuscript you can find, you can replace, you can find special, which is like a text feature. So I can actually go through and look for ornamental breaks or images or alignment blocks. I can look for these things specifically, which really saves me time because in here for them, every single book that they do, they always have 2 points of views in every chapter. The first one is at the top and then the second one is always down. So I can actually go and go to find. I can go to find special, text feature, and then I can go to ornamental break. And now I can find every ornamental break so that I don't have to sit there and scroll through like this to get to where that second person is. I literally just have to press it, and that saves me so much time. All right. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. All right, let's see what other little things. I mean, that's basically the overview of everything. So let's go down here and we're going to go to Stock Me. I put a QR code. So this is actually a photograph that I made in Canva. I have beacons. I highly recommend beacons to everybody. And I do because of the fact that they allow for like expression way more than Linktree does. In order to have like any background you want in Linktree, you have to have a paid version. You don't have to have that in Beacons. I thoroughly enjoy Beacons. So I went into my Canva and I did a little Instagram post and I just put this together with the QR code for Stock Me. And then down here are the other ones that aren't there. So basically what you would do is you would take your link right here, take this link. All right, and then I'm going to go to remove link. There we go. So if it comes in like this and there's no link, you can just do it. If it has a link already, but you want it to look like this, you just saw it. So let's here, I'll have both up. All right, so I want to remove this link so I can just show you. All right, so for this one, if it comes in and you want to put a link on it, it doesn't recognize the link, you can literally just go to web link and then you put whatever it is. And if it already comes in as a link, you literally can just put it in whatever it is. And so that really helps when you're doing things like these ones here. What I like to do is I like to put in the name and then I can just highlight and make a link. And so I have that for all of my also buys, which is a really, really big thing. to have those in the back. I always offer a sneak peek. That's a personal thing. Oh, this here is a header. Here's that header that I was telling you about. But like I said, the downside is you can't. You can't, like, move it or anything like that. Like, I can't decide the size. I think I had to make this pretty big to get it to look this big. And it's even smaller. Like if I were to put in, oh, because I didn't make this one a chapter. So if I was to convert this to a chapter and this was a chapter, like that looks pretty small at the top. Just gonna make it an epilogue. Okay. All right. So a couple other things that you can do. You can clear titles. And that'll take away titles. You can add subtitles. So if I were to put, stolen obsession, which I probably should have, you can have subtitles. You can replace the heading image this way on one. If you didn't want to do more than one, you could add a heading image. You can remove a heading image. You can completely hide a heading image. And I do this for books where I'm actually manipulating specific things. If like I wanted to add in my own header, you can hide it and then bring it down. But that is actually, I think, already one I have a video on. I will link it. It's in my Vellum tutorials, but I'll put a link for it down below. You can change the heading backgrounds and you can convert with chapters. When you're on a chapter, you can make these chapters numbered or unnumbered, so it will look like that. It's all just going to depend on what you did for your specific style. All right, let's look at a couple of other things up here. Obviously, open recent, importing files. As you can see, when I opened it, it opened actually a new tab. You literally can just go like this to make it a new window, especially if you're working side by side with maybe an older version or another book. Close the window, save. If there is an asterisk, it means that it's not saved yet. Duplicate. You can revert to. You can actually browse all versions. You can re-import Word files, reuse elements from different ones. I'm actually kind of curious. Oh, cool. So when you reuse the elements, I can actually reuse certain things, which is good to know about. I hadn't played with this yet, to where as far as like other authors, stuff like that. So that actually is going to save me a whole bunch of time. Generate the book. You can export content, select platforms. What we're going to pay attention here is print settings. This is where you're going to decide your print settings, your margins, your text adjustments. Let me tell you a really big secret. If your book is really big, it is not going to automatically adjust your inside margin. So people are like, oh, I can't get my words to fit. You have to come into print settings and adjust your inside margin. Now, my normal inside margin for most books is always at 0.75, or 0.075. Sorry, hold on. No, 0.75. Yeah, to 0.875. This one is a really thick book, so I have it at 1 inch. It fits perfectly. Sometimes you might even have to adjust your outside margin as well. Just be aware of that. But for the most part, the outside margin is done automatically, but the inside margin is something you do specifically have to change yourself. All right, so the other thing is going to be text adjustments. You can adjust the font size. Like here, I actually adjusted the line spacing, but you can kind of adjust the font size. So like my 11.5 font size is actually larger than average for most books. I could have made that smaller. You can adjust chapter beginnings. For the most part, if you are doing a page spread and you have it on first chapter begins on the right side, it is going to cut off half of your image. So if you're doing a 2-page spread, make sure you're doing every chapter begins on the right side. If not, like for this one, first chapter begins on the right side. And for this book, because I was trying to save page counts, like some of the chapters will actually land on the left side, which is not actually uncommon in paperbacks, but it's not as common as it used to be. But I am trying to save blank pages in this book because it's so huge. But if you're doing a 2-page spread, it's not going to do it automatically for you. Make sure you press every chapter begins on the right side. Page numbering, if you where you want to start the pages, including the initial page all the way up at the top where it's like content, right after content, or the first chapter, which is where I begin mine, and then images, whether you want them black and white or color. So if you were doing like a cookbook, or if you were doing, I'm actually going to be doing a special edition where the color, all the chapters are actually colored. You can select colored as well. No, 568 pages. That's not bad. Okay. So print settings, very, very important. Make sure you're paying attention to that. Emojis and symbols. This is where you would go if you want to add an emoji to your text messages. This is also something that is new that most people don't know about. So that's something that you can just kind of realize, and I really like, I think that's like the best thing ever. You can do dictation as well, special characters, transformations if you want to. So this is just really like going through and kind of playing with it, but for the most part, emojis and symbols are your most important one. Chapters. You can add chapters, add elements, and multiple elements, convert, numbered, heading, background. So you can do all this stuff in chapter. The most important thing here is knowing that if you're putting in like image headers, right, you actually can select all of the chapters you want that specific header on, come up to heading image or even heading background if you're doing a background, and select which one you want. And it will apply to those chapters. So if you were like me, where in this book, every person has a different heading background, I can go through, find out which ones are the ones that I want, and then just go up and mass do it from up here. You can also do insert a page break. You can split a chapter. All of that stuff is up here as well. Text is the same thing that is down in there. Same with view, window. None of those are particularly important. And there you go. Here you have it. So it's super exciting. But I hope that helped and it wasn't too disjointed. So I hope you like it. Let me know if you have any questions. Never be afraid to ask in the comments, even if I sometimes don't see them. I'm so sorry. I try to get to them if I see them. But for now, I'll see you in the next video. Stay savvy.